Good afternoon, football fans. Chris here with the Jaeger Bombs Fantasy Sports to talk some DFS NFL Showdown for Monday Night Football. We got the Broncos visiting the Chargers on Monday night. We're going to talk some Showdown picks, some matchups that I like, and then look at my rankings for Showdown. Usually do a live show, but tied up today. Got kids figure skating that starts today, and got to be there to watch that, or I will be in big trouble. So I'm going to do a pre-recorded show and go over all this stuff. So with that, let's dig into the Monday Night Football game between the Broncos and Chargers. Jump over to the cheat sheet here. So first of all, we got the Chargers minus 4.5 favorites here. Game total of 45.5, which is about medium in terms of what we've seen throughout the week. Moving over, the Chargers run the 6th ranked pace. We got Denver running a 24 ranked pace on the season. That is, looking at plays ran during the game. Looking at the offenses versus defenses, the Chargers are top 10 overall. Their strength comes in the passing game, a little bit weaker in the rush, whereas Denver has just been pretty much awful everywhere. 27th overall, 21st in the pass, 23rd versus the rush. And then looking at the defenses, that is the only reason Denver's really stayed, relatively relevant in terms of the standings. They're the 4th overall defense in terms of DVOA, 2nd against the pass, 15th against the rush, while the Chargers are about mid-pack overall, 13th, a little bit above average passing game in terms of their defense. And then their weakness has been the running back. And we see that in terms of the fantasy points against position, while the Chargers are 20th against quarterbacks, 22nd against wide receivers, 15th against tight ends, and dead last against the running back, while Denver's defense is 3rd in fantasy points against the quarterback, 1st against wide receivers, 16th against tight ends, and 8th against running backs. So with that, let's dig into the individual matchups here. Let's first actually go over some injuries. We've got Keenan Allen. Unfortunately, he has not played since week 1. He got hurt early on in week 1. He is doubtful for tonight's game. Melvin Gordon, he's got a neck and rib injury. He's listed as questionable. It sounds like he's probably going to give it a shot to go. Probably not going to be someone I'm going to include in my cash games just because of he's not going to be 100%. I think we can probably look to Mike Boone as getting, let's just see here, when Gordon was, so he's played all those games. Mike Boone, there we go. Pulling his, he had a little bit more workload in weeks 4 and 5, and we can see that over on you can go look at the snap counts for the week. I got 2 teams up here. So we got Mike Boone, played 30 snaps last week, 19 in week 4. So last week he got 7 carries, 38 yards. He actually did get 3 targets in the passing game, 47 yards. His price is up a little bit this week for the Showdown for sure. 11.5 fantasy points. I think we can deal with that probably in cash games. I think that would be fine. Someone that we can probably consider there. But Melvin Gordon is someone I'll probably be avoiding unless it is a GPP and a larger. If I'm doing single entry or 3 max, I'm probably going to avoid him. But someone I would definitely consider in GPPs, if you start getting bigger, building 5, 10, 15 up into the 50 or the 150 max, someone that I'd probably want to include in there just in case he does get out there and have a good game, because it is a good matchup, like we said earlier, because the Chargers are dead last against the running back. So it is a good matchup. It just sucks that we just don't have certainty on that position for tonight. As for quarterbacks, Justin Herbert, a little bit more expensive there. Obviously the better option than Russell Wilson, who's been pretty shady so far this year. Looking at the running back position, Austin Eckler, most expensive player on the slate here at 11.4 for the flex, 17.1 in terms of the flex position or the captain spot. I think, we kind of seen that last night where we've got some cheap plays that make it very viable to get Eckler in there. I think he's the highest floor / highest upside player on the slate. He's really come on the last 2 weeks, 13 and 16 carries, 60 yards, 173 yards last week. He ran ramshot over that Cleveland's dead last rushing defense. 3 touchdowns rushing over the last 2 weeks, and then he's heavily involved in the receiving game as well. He's got, the first week was only 4 targets, but then he's gone 10, 8, 7. He was 4 for 4 last week, 26 yards, scored another touchdown. So he scored touchdowns in back-to-back weeks receiving, as well as touchdowns back-to-back rushing. So he's been very explosive for the Chargers. Probably the guy they're going to lean to the most tonight, and I don't think it's going to be too hard to get him in your captain spot tonight. couple other things I wanted to look at statistic-wise. First of all, I wanted to go over to NFL Savant, something I touch on almost every single NFL video here. What I'm looking at here is breaking this down to red zone, offense, and defense. I want to have a look at that. So if you are sorting and you are using NFL Savant and you want to do it, you got to go less than and equal to the opponent's 20. You want to go play results touchdown, offense or defense. Plays, obviously, it's still going to be touchdowns, 20-22, and then plays of 20 or less yards. If you don't go plays of 20 or less yards, it's going to be the numbers will be thrown out a little bit. It's not going to be 100% accurate. It took me a couple tries to get that filtered down, but that's what you need to plug in right there. So first we'll look at the offenses. Denver, terrible. Second worst offense in the red zone in terms of scoring. The Chargers are right there, smack dab in the middle with 12 touchdowns in the red zone this season. We go ahead and we look at that from a defensive standpoint. Guess who's terrible? Or sorry, really good. Sorry, got that wrong. Denver's defense has been tremendous in the red zone, holding teams. So one angle, if you want to look at it a little bit here, just looking at that information by itself from a betting standpoint is possibly the under, because Denver, one, is holding teams. They've only held them to 3 touchdowns in the red zone this season, which is really, really good. But Denver's offense has been terrible in the red zone, so they're not scoring in the red zone. So either want to look at Denver team total under or possibly a whole entire game under here tonight, and we're set at 45.5. So I don't think that's totally out of whack. So that's kind of where I'm leaning in terms of betting tonight. I do like the Chargers in terms of winning the game. 4.5 points on the spread. I'm not 100% sold on that right now for betting. I am leaning on the under. A couple other things we're looking at here is deep passes versus just looking for upside in terms of our wide receivers. Looking at the defenses here, Denver 5th best in terms of allowing the deep ball. Comes a lot with Patrick Surtain on the outside, one of the best corners in the league. The Chargers have been, they've been giving up some deep balls, so we can look at possibly Cortland Sutton. I'm going to show you that kind of ties into my new stat over on the sheet. Looking at air yards percentage, Denver's down at 620, but what we noticed with Denver, Cortland Sutton, and we talked about this in the main slate video on Sunday, he leads the team in air yards at 335, and he's getting 54% of Denver's air yards. So if you're looking for upside, Cortland Sutton is definitely where you want to be. And then just looking at Cortland Sutton, his player card here, what I like about him as a captain tonight, he's especially for cash games, he has been extremely consistent. 12, 16, 17.7, 22.7, double-digit fantasy points every single week, and he's only scored 1 touchdown. So if you start looking at the upside and Denver starts maybe getting some more touchdowns inside the red zone, we can start looking at Sutton. Now, in terms of red zone efficiency, looking at Cortland Sutton also correlates with that information we just gave you there. He's got 9 targets inside the 20, which is 8th best in the league. He's also got 5 inside the 10-yard line, only 1 touchdown. So we could definitely see some positive regression coming on that. I think Sutton is a great play tonight, one of my favorite plays. And then going ahead and looking at outside versus inside. We did this a little bit last night as well on the video. But Denver on the outside is not giving up. They are giving up a league low 645 yards on the outside, versus they've been a lot worse, down the middle. And again, that comes back to Patrick Surtain and his play at the cornerback position. I believe he is top 3 in terms of PFF ranks in terms of coverage at the cornerback position. As for the Chargers, they are allowing 342 yards on down the middle, and then they're about the same they're top 10 in both. So they've been really good against the pass there as a team as a whole as well. So looking at my top plays here and kind of building out a lineup, I've got my ranks up on the sheet for tonight. You can go over and check those out. Cortland Sutton, number 1, like I talked about, consistency. And then just because of price, I have Austin Eckler, number 2. But really for me, they're 1A, 1B. If you are building the 3 max, I might even lean to Eckler in 2 of the 3. But just for cash games, Sutton helps you get to, if you want to go double quarterback, it's a lot easier to build with him. And just that price differential has me put Sutton in the number 1 spot. Now, the reason I have Justin Herbert number 3 and no Mike Williams as a captain, because Mike Williams has been very explosive, as we know, with Keenan Allen out of the lineup, and we can go and we can see that here. Looking at the games without Keenan Allen, he's at 100-plus yards, double-digit targets, in 3 of 4 games without Keenan Allen. The only reason I'm off him is he's going to see a lot of, again, going back to Patrick Surtain, has been absolutely amazing at the cornerback position. I think he's going to shut him down. He's shut down some really good receivers, better than Mike Williams so far this year. So I think that's going to play a huge factor. That opens up some value for me at the number 2 wide receiver for the Chargers. Given that Keenan Allen's going to be ruled out, I'm already assuming that he's going to be ruled out. Joshua Palmer, we'll just go over to the flex here. He is 5,800 at the flex position. Hasn't been great, but 6-9 for 99 yards versus Jacksonville. That's kind of probably what we're looking at for a ceiling for him, 15 to 18 points, and I think that's great at 5,800, especially if Mike Williams is going to be absolutely shut down. And looking at Palmer, he kind of moves all around the field. He's playing about 30 to 35% of his snaps all the way across left, right, and in the slot. And being that he's going to, Mike Williams is probably going to see Mike Williams only plays about 15% in the slot. So he, like I said, he's probably going to see a lot of Patrick Surtain there tonight. So I think Joshua Palmer is going to get some run in the slot as well as on the opposite side of Surtain. So I think he makes a good value play with Keenan Allen out. We can probably even this game look to DeAndre Carter. Going to be GPP only, just simply because he just hasn't been great at all. He's just a little bit too high. If he was in the sub 2K range as a flex, I'd probably consider him a little bit more. I think it's going to be fine. If he gets you that's 3 for 3 or 3 for 4 for 50 yards, 40 to 60 yards, and gets you that 8 to 12, 8 to 15 points, I think you're doing fine, especially if you have Justin Herbert in your lineup and you want to double stack without Max Williams. I think that makes sense. And then I also like Gerald Everett at the tight end position. He's coming off a really bad week. People might be down on him and go to DeAndre Carter, Joshua Palmer. So he could be a little bit lower owned there at 5,600. He's right there in terms of pricing with Joshua Palmer. So I think Palmer is probably going to see more ownership than Everett. So I think maybe we could do some pivoting to Everett in GPPs. Not someone I'm looking to in cash games. Denver versus tight ends. We'll go look at the versus position. We got running back there. So tight ends, Denver's been, 16th mid-pack in the league in terms of performance against a tight end. They've only got 2 touchdowns to the tight ends, but still Everett just hasn't been as consistent. But I think he makes a good pivot off Josh Palmer in GPPs. So building my lineups out here, there's a couple ways I like going about it and a couple ways you can do it. You can definitely throw in, like I said, Sutton, and then I like Eckler and Herbert. You get them in there, you're left with that 5K. A couple things you can do. Kendall Hinton, I want to get certainty that he's going to be back in the lineup from the practice squad this week. It sounds like they elevated him once again. That is our $200 play of the night. I was off last night. It was Ferguson versus Hendershot for Dallas, and I was wrong with Hendershot. It ended up being Ferguson. That was the $200 smash play last night. I don't think there's much debate tonight. I think Kendall Hinton's going to be it if he's in the lineup. He's been solid. He's getting, he has a good ADOT down the field. So he's got only 1 catch in those first 2 games, but it was for 20 and 27 yards, which was enough at $200. If he's, he was $200 the first week. They elevated him to $1,200. That probably wasn't enough when he was $1,200, but for $200, if we get that 20 yards and 1 catch, that's totally fine at $200. It allows us to load up with the rest of our players. If he gets us 2 for 3 for 39, getting you up in 6-7 fantasy points, if he gets anywhere above 5 points in the range of 8 to say 10, 12 points tonight, I think he's going to help you definitely get there. So he's someone that I would consider get in there in your cash lineups. And then it kind of gives you options after this. Like I said, I'm probably not going to Williams in cash games. Russell Wilson, you can get him in there for a bounce back. And then what I like, I don't mind leaving it on the table, but with Denver's, looking at the correlation stats here, looking at red zone efficiency, we talked about Denver being dead last in the league in terms of red zone efficiency. Well, that leads to Brandon McManus. He has a very high floor, as you can see. He's got double-digit field goal attempts in all of his games, and he's money. We know that. He's money from distance. He's put up double-digit points in 3 of 5 games, 5+ points in every single game. So I think that makes for a pretty solid cash lineup, gets you double quarterback, gets you a solid, very consistent wide receiver at your captain, and it gets you the highest scoring player projected on the slate with Austin Eckler in there as well, plus your punt play. So that's one way you can go about it. If you want to fit Eckler in there as your captain, I think that can make some sense as well, and it's really not that hard to do. If you're going to go that way, I don't mind going with Herbert. Still going to go with Sutton in there because of the consistency like we talked about. Joshua Palmer, now you can go double kicker if you want. No, you cannot in that build. So what I would probably do here is come down and get Hinton. Makes a lot of sense. Now we're going to, like I said, this video is being filmed, recorded at about 4 p.m. Eastern today. So make sure to check the actives, inactives going into the game here. But I'm assuming that Hinton's going to be in. From what I read 5 days ago, he was elevated from the practice squad. So it looks like he's going to be in that lineup. And I'll take that 200 for 1 to 3 targets. You know, if he gets 1 to 2 catches, if he gets in that 20-yard range, like I said, it's going to pay off. That gets you back up into the 7,500 range. Allows you to go Jerry Jeudy, Hinton, and Sutton. Not my favorite build, just simply because you've got 3 Denver pass catchers in there and you don't have Russell Wilson. So if all 3 of those are in there, I do like getting McManus in my lineups. So if we go there and then we come back up and we go double quarterback, no. Everett maybe, Mike Boone we could fit in there, leaves us 4,900. Then we can go with Chargers D going up against them. That is another correlated stat, you know, not having Russell Wilson in there, but going with the Chargers D hasn't been great in terms of points for them. But then we go McManus. This still isn't my favorite. I'm probably leaning towards the Sutton lineup a little bit more tonight. But we could go, yeah, you could get Mike Williams in there. Let's just go ahead and plug that in. He has smashed when Keenan Allen has been out, so I think we can possibly go there. So now we've got Eckler. We've got the 3 big plays from the Chargers. Then we want to go Sutton, and then we want to plug in Hinton. And then I believe that's going to get us McManus here, and it is not going to get us McManus. So then you're into DeAndre Carter range. So it's kind of like a triple stack with Justin Herbert here. It's really a double stack with wide receivers. Then you're getting Eckler. Then you're getting Sutton and Hinton over on the Denver side. I'm fine with that as well. But my favorite build as of now for my cash lineup is going to be Cortland Sutton, Austin Eckler, Justin Herbert, McManus, Hinton. And then that allows us to go up and either get Mike Williams, if you want to do that, or Russell Wilson getting you the double quarterback. Wilson has been disappointing. He's my quarterback in 2 of my 4 fantasy leagues, and it has absolutely sucked so far this year. But he has given us 20-plus points in 2 of 4 games. So if he can get in that 20-plus point range again, I think this is going to be an awesome spot for your cash game lineups. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at there. GPPs, if you really want to, you know, get crazy, I don't think a lot of people are going to have Russell Wilson up there in the captain spot tonight. If you're going Russell Wilson, you're going to pair him with Sutton for sure. You can probably go double quarterback with Herbert and Eckler. Get that in there. And then if you plug in Kendall Hinton, leaves you 4,000. That allows you the kicker. With Russell Wilson, you're probably not going to want McManus in there, but this is assuming the game is going to probably be over. I think McManus gives you a high floor in there. One of those 2 kickers, possibly even KJ Hamler in there as well, just to get you more pass catchers for Russell Wilson. But that is a few different ways. But going back to my rankings here real quick, one more look at that. I got Sutton, Eckler, Herbert. Williams falls out of the top captain spot again because of the matchup. We got Russell Wilson in there. Joshua Palmer as a value play. This is assuming, again, Keenan Allen is going to be out. Gerald Everett, Melvin Gordon. That ranking is going to change depending if we hear any more on his injury status. Mike Boone could get a little bit of a bump up the rankings if we hear more that Melvin Gordon is less than 100% or is absolutely out. Then Mike Boone is probably going to be up here in the 5-6 range. Jerry Jeudy, Brandon McManus in terms of my favorite kicker. Joshua Kelly is the backup running back for the Chargers. Get some run. It's going to be low-owned play to get in there. And then the Chargers defense, just because Denver has been so bad. Looking at the defenses over here, one thing that I do like for the Chargers defense, they do have that. They're the 14th D-line versus Denver's 24th O-line. They've allowed 16 sacks this season. So I think the Chargers can get in there and probably rack up, 3-4 sacks tonight. That could be their biggest game from a defensive fantasy point standpoint. So I'm definitely considering them. Denver's been the better defense overall this season, but I'm more on the Chargers side of things tonight, so I'm kind of staying away from the Denver defense. All right, that takes care of all my plays for Monday Night Football. Thanks for watching the video. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. We've got more Showdown coming up on Week 7, as well as more NHL shows. Make sure I've got a Monday NHL show up. Make sure to go check that out if you're playing hockey. And then tomorrow we've got articles coming out. And if you are new to Jagerbombs Fantasy Sports, head over to www.patreon.com/Jagerbombs. $10 a month for one sport, or $20 a month for all sports. That gets you access to all of our cheat sheets, our coaches, plays, ranks, everything, all the news channels we have in Discord gets you access to our Discord channel and our great community over there. Thanks for watching, everyone, and good luck tonight.